So the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, just quit. And I'm trying to figure out if I had something to do with it.
Over the holidays, I've also had a chance to reflect and have had long talks with my family about our future. Throughout the course of my career, any success I have personally achieved has been because of their support and with their encouragement. So last night over dinner, I told my kids about the decision that I'm sharing with you today. I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process. Last night, I asked the President of the Liberal Party to begin that process.
Now, last week I published a video, and we'll go ahead and play some clips about it here.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Trump just said Merry Christmas as well, and look what he said. He said, Governor Justin Trudeau of Canada, whose citizens are taxed too high, but if Canada was to become our 51st state, their taxes would be cut by more than 60%. Sounds pretty good.
So is Canada going to become the 51st state? Let's talk about it on Azimuth Podcast. My name is Barrett McNabb. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. Plus, I don't even think it would be a good 51st state. I think you would split those up into 9 states and then have them integrate, because that would be one huge state. But how did this happen? Well, Donald Trump has been talking about tariffs and is talking about levying tariffs 25% on both Mexico and on Canadian goods. Obviously, both countries are like, hey, what's going on? Trump is doing this because this has been an unfair trade imbalance for the United States, where the United States has trade deficits with multiple countries. The biggest one is China. But still, when he said that he was going to slap a tariff on the Canadian goods, Justin Trudeau went down to Mar-a-Lago to talk to Trump. And just as a, joking, he called him governor. And said, you could be the 51st state. And it became this little running joke, and Trudeau went back to Canada. But then he kind of lambasted Trump on the idea of the 51st state and not the idea of tariffs. And Trump tweeted back either on his Truth Social or on X, I don't recall which one, but said, hey, calm down, Governor Trudeau. And so that kind of, got this thing going. So let's talk about this on Azimuth Podcast. My name is Barrett McNabb, and this would be crazy. Now, I know I didn't have anything to do with Justin Trudeau quitting, but it was funny that I had just published this video. It got a lot of views for my videos, a lot of views, and a lot of comments from Canadians who were really angry that I made the video and had a lot of nasty things to say about Kevin O'Leary. But this was all revolving around Canada becoming the 51st state, and the fact that Trump has threatened to put a 25% tariff on Canada and Canadian goods unless some certain stipulations are met. So Justin Trudeau went down to Mar-a-Lago and talked to President Trump, and he said, hey, look, this would be great. You could be the governor of the 51st state. And it was all in good jest. Again, the comments were pretty hysterical because I figured this wasn't going to happen. But a lot of Canadians had a lot of hate for even the assumption that could possibly happen. But I would also have to say that a lot of Canadians were positive and could not wait to be part of the United States as well. So, here we have a Justin Trudeau that's resigning. And honestly, it's kind of amazing to see, how this would happen. So Trump on his Truth Social posted this, and I'm going to read it verbatim. So him reacting to Trudeau quitting. Many people in Canada love being the 51st state. The United States can no longer suffer the massive trade deficits and subsidies that Canada needs to stay afloat. Justin Trudeau knew this and resigned. If Canada merged with the United States, there would be no tariffs, taxes would go way down, and they would be totally secure from the threat of Russian and Chinese ships that are constantly surrounding them. Together, what a great nation it would be. And again, I got a lot of hate from Canadians, but I got a lot of positive from Canadians as well, and a lot of positive from Americans saying, understanding how great this would be for both nations to do this. So, but let's talk about why Justin Trudeau quit. He quit because he was about to go through a vote of no confidence, and he knew he was going to lose. He knew he was going to lose, and so this way he gets to leave versus being pushed out. And that's an important distinction to understand, is that he'll be able to tell himself in the mirror that he quit, he resigned, and he was not forced out of his position. And that's going to be, important for, I guess, his self-esteem and his ego. But, a lot of the comments in that last video, and I highly encourage you to take a look at it as well, but a lot of the comments in that last video talked about all the great work and stuff that Canada does and that he did, and they especially were talking about their medical care. It's socialized medicine, so it's nothing out of pocket. But similar to the UK, the wait times are horrific. It's not like you can just walk in, go get an open heart bypass surgery, and walk out. You've got to be on a list, and there are boards that can say whether or not you are deserving of the care. There's countless times in socialized medicine in England where a young child has a horrific disease, and there are experimental cures that could potentially save the child's life in other countries, whether it be in the United States or whether it be in the UAE. And English bureaucrats have decided that the child will not receive those health care that could potentially save their life. They have to die. And so that's one of the things that Sarah Palin was talking about in her and John McCain's presidential and vice presidential run were the death panels. If we went to socialized medicine, where bureaucrats would decide, who dies, who lives, and who gets the health care. So, but that was something that the Canadians in the comments really, really defended. But here's some things that they kind of left out. Do you remember the time when the truckers in Canada were protesting and they were not moving goods around because they wanted some conditions met? And what did the Canadian government do? They seized the private bank accounts of these individuals in order to force them to stop protesting and to force them to get back into work. Okay, so you talk about freedom. That's not freedom. That's the truckers were protesting, and they were punished. They were punished for speaking out. And again, their private money in the bank accounts were seized and taken away from them in order to, starve them into submission and to no longer protest and to get back to work, moving, equipment and foodstuffs around the nation. I mean, that's just, Justin Trudeau did that. That's not a free country. I mean, he wasn't on the side of that. And then also, if you remember, the pastor who wanted to pray and had an arrest warrant out, and just for exercising what we would consider our First Amendment right of free speech, gets arrested and has an international warrant. And as soon as he touched down in Canada, the police met him at the plane and arrested him, because he wanted to speak his mind. I mean, that's not a free society, and Justin Trudeau did that. They had a shooting that occurred, and so Justin Trudeau took away all handguns. Just said, we're just taking everything away, the rifles and high capacity or standard capacity handgun magazines, and they just did that. So this is what Justin Trudeau is doing, and the people of Canada are rebelling. That's why he's losing so much support. When they knew that, or he knew that he would not be able to survive this ongoing 25% tariff dispute. He's said, hey, look, we're ready to do this thing. We'll take our lumps, and the economy would not survive. His finance minister quit because he was trying to take this hardline stance, and she was like, look, we don't have the reserves and the economy in order to just weather that storm, so you need to negotiate, and he wasn't willing to do so, and so she quit. Now, interestingly enough, she's in the running for to be the next prime minister. There's a number of people that are waiting in the wings and try and take this out. But the Conservatives honestly need to step up their game and make sure they push these liberals out and down to where they need to go. The experiment is over. You're hurting your country. There's inflation. You're about to get 25% tariffs on your goods, which you won't be able to manage that. And it's because of these trade disparities that we have. I mean, President Trump or President-elect Trump isn't doing this just to be mean. The United States is at a trade deficit with a number of countries, and it's time to right the ship. One of the, I think it was a G7 meeting, or was it a G10? I don't recall. But it was during year 2 of his administration. And he was talking about the tariffs, and he was going to, slap tariffs on other products, and everyone was like, "Well, that's not fair. You shouldn't have these tariffs." And he said, "Well, what if we get rid of tariffs altogether?" And of course, Macron, the French president, threw his hands up and that's not that's a non-starter. Merkel, the previous German chancellor, threw her hands up and said that's not practical as well. But Trump is doing this to help the United States. He's not the president of the world. He's not the president of North America. He's going to be the future president, again, of the United States of America, and that's the whole purpose of the America First MAGA movement, is we need to decide what's best for our country, just like other countries do for themselves. They look out for their own interests first, and then if they can align with good economic policies, with have military alliances and things like that, they do that. But you look out for your own citizens first, and then you look out for everybody else. I mean, it's similar to what my mother used to tell me. Do the things you have to do before you do the things you want to do. Justin Trudeau knew that he was going to get pushed out in a vote of no confidence, and he saw the writing on the wall. He saw how unpopular he is. I mean, he has an over 60% disapproval rating. All right. I want to say it's 64% disapproval rating. That means the vast majority of people in Canada do not think he is doing a good job. And how can people think you're doing a good job when you're stealing the private money and seizing bank accounts from people that dare to speak out against you, the truckers, and then also the thought police and the speech police for a pastor talking about religion? And having an international arrest warrant put out for him, and then having police meet him as soon as he lands, and then taking him into custody. That's exactly what Russia does. If there is a political dissident, Russia seized them as soon as he landed. So the similarities are crazy. But still, this was breaking news. Leave me a comment below whether you think Justin Trudeau should have stayed in power and see if he could survive the vote of no confidence, or if he did the right thing. But it was uncanny that I put this video out, and it got some views, and I got a lot of comments and everything. And then within 4 days, the Prime Minister of Canada resigns. And so you just gotta, things should make you go, was it my video that did that? Now, again, I know it wasn't, but still, it was a funny coincidence in order to make this video for this breaking news. So thanks so much for tuning into Azimuth Podcast, and please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.
So it just seems as though we can't help ourselves in letting our children down. The state of New Jersey's education system has just eliminated at the beginning of this school year the reading, writing, and math basic skills test in order to become a teacher. Let's talk about it on Azimuth Podcast. I'm Barrett McNabb.
New Jersey's largest teachers union wants to get rid of a basic skills test requirement for aspiring educators. It posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, quote, "We need you to take action exclamation point. Last year, New Jersey eliminated the EDTPA, a barrier to becoming a certified teacher. Now it's time to eliminate another barrier, the basic skills test for teachers. Urge Governor Murphy to sign Senate Bill 1553 right away. The union claims this will help with the teacher shortage, but others say it just adds more fuel to the trend of students falling behind. Cassie, you have a daughter, and I know in D.C., and I know that you're trying to decide how to educate her.
Yes. Well, so my husband and I, when we were dating, he's like, I'm all public school, and I went to the Catholic school growing up. He was like, I got a great education. Our kids are going public school. And now he's like, we need to save our pennies. We are going to private school, or we need to. And it's not even like, oh, let's move to this good zip code, because it used to be your zip code could determine your education. Well, Fairfax County, Virginia, incredibly affluent county, and that's the epicenter of all this school board nonsense. So school choice is the answer to this conversation, because we know the national report card is in the tank, failing grades across the board. And now you're going to say, oh, let's just lower the barrier to entry for the people educating our kids, our most prized possessions. Everything we've been talking about today harkens back to the kids are not all right. They're getting their education in news from TikTok. So this just doesn't bode well for us. But yeah, shout out to my husband for moving in my direction.
Jeremy, you also, how are you educating your oldest right now?
That's right. So we have a 4-year-old, my oldest, and we have her in a Christian preschool, right, which we can trust. We know that she's getting those values that are important to us, and so we're thankful for that. But we're having a lot of conversations about what that's going to look like once she starts elementary school, and are we going to, continue in a private school setting, public school? So my wife and I were having a lot of discussions, and even homeschooling now is on the rise, in response to a lot of this madness in our.
Well, how dare you say that, Randy Weingarten? It's because homeschooling is on the rise because of gun violence.
It's crazy. I mean, these people, they're so disconnected with reality. It's insane. And my wife was homeschooled for much of her life. And what's so funny is that now I'm like trying to talk to my mother-in-law, get my mother-in-law out of retirement so she can homeschool our little ones. I'm like, we're trying to get her back to help out because it's scary when you think about where our education system is going.
Tammy, this is, you have to pass a skills test to become a hairstylist, to be a manicurist, but not to educate the nation's children.
Right, and I think it speaks to the fact of that they've been failing for a generation or two already. So that these people who went through the same system got taught nothing. So their room of people to choose from doesn't know what to do. As a matter of fact, and we are perpetuating that, Oregon the Department of Education has eliminated basic reading, writing, and math skills as requirements for graduation from high school. So those will be the next teacher group, right? It's madness, and that clearly it has to stop.
Yeah.
Well, the teachers in New York City sued over this and said that the disparity between the basic skills scorers was irrelevant. It was how they taught. They sued over this issue.
Oh. And they won, and it got better.
Won.
It got better.
Oh. Yeah. I mean, I just, it's so laughable if it wasn't so absolutely destructive to our nation's children and the education. So first of all, I literally thought when I saw that X tweet, I thought it was a joke at first, because it was like, now it's time to call for removal of the next barrier, the basic skills. That's not a barrier. That's the fundamental qualifications for a position description.
Lowest bar.
Yeah. Next time you go into surgery, oh, hey, doctor, don't worry about passing your test. I don't care if you know what is the difference between my spleen and my kidney. This is a joke. Instead of meeting the kids where they are and meeting the teachers where they are, which is rock bottom, and maybe investing in the actual education of them, they are saying, oh, don't worry about it, honey. Oh, here's your diploma anyway, in case I hurt your feelings along the way. I am so frightened for our future, because it will be led by absolutely uneducated idiots that think they are doing me a favor by dumbing me down.
Yeah. So here we go. We have a school system, and they're absolutely right. Talking about Oregon, the Oregon state has eliminated the reading, writing, and mathematics assessment in order to graduate high school. So what does that mean? That means that there is no accountability for releasing these young citizens into the country, and they're now in the job market. And we do not know whether or not they can read, they can write, they can do math. all of the skills that you're going to have to do, even just at a entry-level fast food. You have to be able to do math. You'll be able to count out the change. I mean, I understand, you have the teller machine is doing the counting, but you still have to get those pennies and nickels and dimes and start counting them out in order to make sure that you get the customer the correct change. So, I mean, mathematics is super important. Never mind being able to read instructions and things like that. So here we have teachers in New Jersey that no longer have to pass or take an exam that lets the school board know, or the school Department of Education inside New Jersey know, that their teachers that they're hiring can read, write, and do mathematics. Now, here's the big problem. The teachers' unions have said that this is a good thing to eliminate this test because it eliminates the barriers in order to become a teacher, and it helps them fix the teacher shortage. Here's the problem. Because they said that this basic skills test was a barrier, that means the people that were applying for the jobs were failing the exam. That's what that means. If it was just take the exam, doesn't matter what your score is, and you get to be a teacher, then it wouldn't be a barrier. So that means the basics of reading, writing, and math were too hard for these teachers, potential teachers, and they were not passing the exam, which then led them not to be hired. So the barrier was that the people that were going to be entrusted to teach your children could not write, they could not read, and they could not do math. Let that sink in for a second. It's only a barrier if they were failing it. And for this to be a basic skills test in order to have our teachers be entrusted with the education of our young children and our middle-aged children and our high schooler students, this is absolutely despicable. This is why education is on the downslope inside the United States of America. If you go back and look at the 50s and 60s and 70s of our education, the United States was near the top. Now we are being eclipsed by nations in Asia, in Europe, and it's because people spend more time learning about their pronouns and the feelings of other people rather than the education that is needed to be a stalwart member of our society and move our country into the future. I do not know if you've seen the movie Idiocracy, but it is a huge satire of exactly what we're talking about, that in the future that people are just so stupid that they have to have computers do everything for them. And the premise of the movie is there's two average or below average intelligence current present day people that get frozen and sent into the future. And even though they were average or below average in current society, in the future, these two are hailed as geniuses. And so it goes about that movie. I may see if I can put a little clip of the movie here. We'll see if I can not get a copyright strike, but I'll play just a smidgen of that for you.
And we're stuck with the dumbest people in history.
If you have one bucket that holds 2 gallons and another bucket that holds 5 gallons, how many buckets do you have?
2? What would you do?
Excuse me, I'm actually supposed to be getting out of prison. You're in the wrong line. I'm the smartest guy in the world? Says who?
The IQ test you took in prison. You got the highest score in history.
Even smarter in prison, come on.
But still, it is just an absolute travesty that we are looking at dumbing down the entry requirements for being a teacher. And those people are the ones that are going to be responsible for teaching our children. Now, I went to public education for middle school and high school and college, went to a state school in Huntsville, Texas. And, I think I got a great education. I really do. However, that was when there was nothing being taught other than reading, writing, arithmetic, civics. We had to take a finance class where we had to learn how to write a check and how to balance a checkbook. Those things aren't being done now. Gavin Newsom has had this epiphany and said, hey, we should introduce personal finance to our high school students. Yeah, it used to be there. But all of those things have been cut so that we can concentrate on pronouns and DEI and whose fault it is that not everybody is ahead, or this group's ahead or that group's ahead. Look, the purpose of the public education system is to make sure that you have great Americans entering into society in order to keep moving the ball down the field as we move our country into the future. But I remember looking at, even when I was in high school, I saw a copy of the teacher's textbook. So we all had textbooks issued to us by the school, and you had to sign for them, and you had to turn them in good working order. So you had to do the covers on the books and things like that. But I happened to see a teacher's version of the same textbook that I had, and it was a little thicker, it was a little bigger. And when you open it up, it had the same text on the interior, but on the exterior, in the margins, it had blue font, and it had basically it spoon-fed the teachers on how to lead the class discussion. So it had whatever paragraph on World War II, and then in the column it said, make sure to ask your students on, I'm going to make this up, ask your students on who were the top 10 generals in World War II for the Allies. And you've got old Monty, you've got Patton, you've got Eisenhower, you've got MacArthur, and things like that versus Rommel and on the German side and those people. So, but I looked at that and I was like, man, to be a teacher, all you have to do is be able to read these blue margins on the side and be able to do this class discussion, and you're Johnny on the spot, like your lesson plan is already done. Well, now in New Jersey, the teachers aren't going to be able to read those blue margins to lead those class discussions because they don't have to know how to read to become a teacher in New Jersey. So even that little easy button that the teachers had when I was in high school in the 80s and 90s is now going to be removed because the teachers can't read. They can't prove that they can read. And I think this is huge news for us. It's going to be systemic down the pipeline again, in reference to Oregon, where the children graduating no longer have to prove they can read and write and do math. That is horrific. Which means that they will complain that they can't get into college, or they'll dumb down college. And then they'll make sure, in order to have everybody graduate college, that there's no proof or rationale for them to get a degree where they can read, write, and do arithmetic as well, because then it's just not going to be fair that they failed a class or whatever. So now they're going to be entering in the white-collar workforce with a degree, a bachelor's degree, or heaven forbid they go get a master's degree, and they're going to say, hey, look, I need you to read this report and summarize it and give it back to me. And they're not going to be able to do it because they didn't learn how to read in high school. They got passed along to a state college. They weren't challenged there because it's not fair to challenge students anymore. And they'll now go into the workforce and they won't be able to accomplish any tasks. And then that will truly be the downfall of our society. I saw this. I couldn't believe. I'm outraged. Let me know in the comments whether you think this is okay, which there's people that are like, hey, I don't care as long as we have the seat filled because I'm just using it as daycare anyway, and I don't care if my my child learns anything. I hope that's not the case, but let me know if you're in favor of eliminating this, or if you are outraged like I am and see that this is a huge problem. Leave that in the comments below. I really do. I try and respond to as many comments as I possibly can, but this was just too outlandish not to bring to you. So thanks so much for tuning into Azimuth Podcast, and please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.
So Stacey Plaskett, a delegate and attorney from the U.S. Virgin Islands, had her be reminded what the Constitution actually says. This took place during Speaker Johnson's historic vote where he was able to secure his second speakership in the first round of voting. But Stacey just couldn't help herself. Let's talk about it on Azimuth Podcast. I'm your host, Barrett McNabb.
I have a parliamentary inquiry. I note that the names of the representatives from the Americas, Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, and the District of Columbia were not called, representing collectively 4 million Americans. Mr. Speaker, collectively the largest per capita of veterans in this country.
Does the gentlelady have a parliamentary
I asked
inquiry?
why they were not called. Have some respect. It's not going to be that.
Gentlelady is recognized.
I asked why they were not called from the parliamentarian, please.
Delegates-elect and the resident commissioner-elect are not qualified to vote. Representatives-elect are the only individuals qualified to vote in the election of a speaker. As provided in Section 36 of the House Rules and Manual, the Speaker is elected by a majority of the members-elect voting by surname.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This body and this nation has a territories and a colonies problem. What was supposed to be temporary has now effectively become permanent. We must do something about this
The
problem.
gentlelady is no longer recognized.
Okay, so here's Stacey. She is trying to make a name for herself. She's been a troublemaker ever since she was allowed to come from the U.S. Virgin Islands to, which is a U.S. territory, so she is a U.S. citizen, but they are assigned delegates, not representatives. And why? Because they're not a state. They are not a state. They are a territory. Okay. Now she says that we have a colony problem. The U.S. Virgin Islands is free to leave the United States anytime they want, just like the Philippines did. We asked them if they wanted to be part of the United States or remain a U.S. territory, and they voted to become their own country. Right? So it still happens. Every once in a while, Puerto Rico is asked whether or not they want to become a state, and they keep voting no. Now it's getting closer and closer, but they keep voting no. So all of these people, the Marianas, Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, etc., they are all U.S. citizens. They're U.S. territories, but they are not states. And so for her to say, why was my name not called? Why was during the roll call to vote? Well, the parliamentarian had to say, well, gentlelady, do you have something you'd like to say? And so she was interrupting the process. And she said, yes. How come our names weren't called? And he had to say, well, because the House rules say that you can't vote because you're a delegate. You're not a representative. So let's go to the Constitution. We'll go ahead and look at this copy right here. And we'll talk about what we really want to talk about is Article 1, Section 2. All right. And so I'm just going to read this verbatim to you. The House of Representatives shall be composed of members chosen every second year by the people of the several states. And the electors in each state will have the qualifications requisite to be electors of the most numerous branch of the state legislature. No person shall be a representative who has not attained the age of 25 years, not yet 7 years a citizen of the United States, and who shall not, when elected, be an inhabitant of the state which he has chosen. Okay? So again, this is talking about you have to be a member of the state. Now, the House of Representatives, composed of representatives of the states, though this is the last paragraph in that Section 2, the House of House of Representatives shall choose their Speaker and other offices and shall have the sole power of impeachment. So that is the process in which that she interrupted the election of the Speaker of the House, Johnson, and she's trying to find out why she didn't get to vote. Now, she's been a part of this process 7 times. 7 times she's seen a changeover since 2015. And so she is clearly not intelligent enough to understand the process of what's going on. Hey, U.S. Virgin Islands, you might want to elect a different delegate to serve your interests in the House of Representatives because your girl just ain't doing it. All right. So again, she is disrupting the entire proceedings to want to know why that she could not talk. And we just have to go to now the parliamentarian talked about House rules, and good on him. But still, just going to the Constitution, Stacey just needs to brush up on it. And you know, New Jersey, no longer, to be a teacher, you no longer have to read and write and do math. But still, I imagine because she's a graduate of law school, she does have that ability. And all she has to do is go down to the second and third paragraph of the Constitution, and she'd be able to find her answer right there. You know, it's almost like when my children, you know, are at the point now that they want to know something, I'm like, you know, you need to go search for that yourself. I remember as I was a kid and I wanted to learn how to spell something, my mother would say, go look it up in the dictionary. And I would say, well, if I don't know how to spell it, how am I going to find it in the dictionary? Well, sound it out and figure it out. And that's something that I would say that the United States is lacking, is our ability to figure stuff out anymore. A quick Google search on her iPhone, she could have gotten the answer that she was looking for. Why wasn't my name called? Because you are not a representative or a representative-elect in the House of Representatives. You are a delegate. You're a guest. And get to have, to be able to speak and be able to report back to your constituents in the U.S. territories. Now, here's the thing. Delegates do get to vote in committee hearings. And that is because that's not in the Constitution. That is because of a House rule that is made. But I would say that even if the rules were changed in the House of Representatives to attempt to allow delegates to vote, it still violates the Constitution. So in order to have the delegates vote and be representatives, which specifically says they have to be representatives from a state, they'd be chosen from a state and elected from a state, that it would still require a constitutional amendment to allow delegates from the U.S. territories to vote. And again, you can choose to become your own nation. And good on you. I mean, good on you. But in order to become a state, it would have to be voted on by the citizens of the United States in order to allow a new state. And the last one that was admitted was Hawaii, which became our 50th state, right? But that took a vote in order to make that territory into a state. And again, we had the Philippines. I'll go back to that again. After World War II, when they were a territory of ours after the Spanish-American War, ceded that territory to us. It was taken over by the Japanese during World War II, and MacArthur famously said, "I'll be back, and I will return," and came back and reconquered the island. And the Filipinos love us, but we asked, they said, "Do you want to become a state?" And they said, "No, we want to become our own independent country." And they have. Now here they're having problems with China and the South China Sea, and there's all this hubbub going over, trying to resupply Marines on coral reefs that have been stranded and things like that. But still, the United States has a defense pact with them. But still, we have a long shared history. But they voted to become their own country, and the other territories in the United States can do that just as easily. And if they feel that is the way they need to go, then that's it. But to jump and interrupt an official whole proceeding that was going on in order to reelect Speaker Johnson as Speaker. I mean, I guess he had to step down and then got reelected as Speaker, but we'll just call him Speaker Johnson. You know, as the vote was going on, for her to interrupt that vote and the parliamentarian to be like, "What are you talking about? Do you have a problem, gentle lady?" And he gave her the floor, and she starts going on, and he's like, "Look, you're no longer recognized," because she's just talking nonsense after he told her and informed her why she does not have the ability to cast a vote into this speakership. But I tell you, the Democrats would love to have all of these territories have representatives, and then there would be an argument to let them have senators, and it would just dominate. The same thing, Washington, D.C. as well. To get 2 senators out of one city would guaranteed to be Democrat senators, would just throw our democracy into chaos with all of these islands and cities having 2 senators and having representatives in Congress. It would just throw everything out of whack. And so either they need to become a state and have that be voted on, which they have the power to suggest that happens. They haven't chosen to do that yet. Or they need to declare their independence and request independence, and they'll be their own country, and they can be on their own footing and have their own stage on the world stage and be able to do that. But until then, she just needs to study up her Constitution a little bit, and instead of causing this giant hubbub, she just needs to sit down and color. So I saw this. This is just too silly to pass up. Leave in the comments below whether you think she should have jumped up and done that, even though she's an attorney and this is her 7th vote, and she is just now still not figuring out why she doesn't get a vote. Leave me a comment below whether you think that she's smart enough to be in the position that she's in. Leave me a comment if you think that she should be able to vote, and all the people from the Philippines, Puerto Rico and the Marianas and Guam should be able to vote as well. So thanks so much for tuning into Azimuth Podcast, and please stay tuned after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.